I think from the beginning, we try to have a sense of whether we're building for an exit back into Old Mutual or out into the open market. It's not always easy to get that right and to know that right from the beginning, but it does help, we think, to have that in mind pretty early on, because it does kind of influence, how you build, how you go about the validation, who you bring in, etc.
Welcome, builders, to How Would You Build It? The podcast that dives deep into the dynamic world of startups and product creation right here in South Africa and Africa. This show is more than just interviews. Every week, we sit down with the brilliant minds to provide a masterclass for building digital products amidst the challenges and opportunities unique to our continent. From seasoned founders to dynamic product managers, we uncover the unique stories and strategies behind some of the most innovative digital products being built. So for all the aspiring founders and product builders out there, you'll discover that each episode is a wealth of practical wisdom and local and actionable insights. Make sure to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to our podcasts and connect with us on social media for even more content. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome, builders, to another episode of How Would You Build It? It's now episode 82. We're nearing the end of 2024. And as always, we've got exciting stories to share on our podcast. But before we share our guests with you, Rainier, good to see you again. How are you doing?
Hi, Bobby. I haven't seen you on the podcast in weeks, so lucky to be back at it.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I think this might be the first time our audience sees us both wearing collared shirts, so that's quite a momentous occasion.
Yeah, it's a big moment.
It's a big moment. We try and keep it casual around, yeah. But we're sharing a very exciting story. For people that have been following the podcast, they would have seen some of the guests that we've had along, I think specifically in 2024, being Next176, and there's been some interesting news that's developed. So we've got some guests to come and tell us the story and what's going on. So to start us off, Nonjabulo, how are you doing? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Bobby. I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, good. And so just to clarify, you're from Next176 and you guys are a venture builder.
Yes. So my name is Nonjabulo and I'm the head of the venture studio at Next176. And a little intro into Next176, if this is the right time for that.
Go for it.
Yeah, we are a strategic partnerships, investments, and venture building arm of Old Mutual. We're wholly owned by Old Mutual, so we're a subsidiary. And our focus is really on driving innovation and unlocking new growth opportunities in targeted ecosystems. So we really focus our work in some key ecosystems, which are debt management, protecting my family's income, jobs and business ownership, sustainability, and education. Try to make sure I don't forget any. And then, of course, overall, our mission is to create disruptive ventures and build businesses that can hopefully impact 1 billion lives. So no pressure, basically.
No pressure.
And the name, for those who don't know, it's Old Mutual was 176 years old when they started it, right? So it said, like, what do we do for the next 176?
Exactly. Look, Renia, you could have done this intro for me.
No, you did really well.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Great context and what a great story. I think so needed in this country. So great to hear it. And then Liz from Byte Orbit. I've been dying to have someone from you guys on the podcast. So thank you for joining.
That's wonderful. Oh, that's really wonderful. Thank you for having me. My name's Liz. I am the head of ventures at Byte Orbit. I also run our product design department. I do a little bit of everything as it goes in slightly smaller companies, and love that. Would always get bored if my days were the same. In terms of what Byte Orbit does, we are traditionally a software development company, but with 20 years of experience. But we've really focused on designing, building, and then launching products for our partners. And that's really been our history, is working with corporates and mostly in the financial industry, in really scalable, secure software solutions that me and my team from a product design perspective help grow as well. That's just a quick snapshot of what we do.
No, love it. Loving the product design part really gets me going.
I know, right?
yeah, I know. I try not geek out on that because I know Renia likes to talk more of the startup side, but I'm here to balance it out so we can at least talk product.
If I had a mute button, I would have muted Bobby so many times. But anyhow,
no love lost here. Hey, and Liz, we've got a mutual friend, Dean. He worked with you guys.
Oh,
for many
Oh,
years. Yes.
he's my work husband, or was my work husband.
Was.
Yes. His wife to be actually knows that that's what I
Okay.
call him. So
Yeah.
we both have our roles, but yeah,
Okay.
miss him dearly, and yeah, made a
Yeah.
big difference in our company as well.
Yeah. So shout out Dean, that's watching. So Renee, we've got these guests on. Do you want to just set the scene for us, please?
Yeah, so I mean, there was a press release this week around a joint venture between Byte Orbit and Next. So Nonjabulo, perhaps you can just dive in and tell us a bit about that, and then we'd love to dive in and understand how this works, why this is a good idea. But let's kick it off by just sharing the announcement.
Yeah, sure. So, as you mentioned, we announced earlier this week that we have gone into a joint venture and sort of partnering with Byte Orbit in an entity called Next Orbit. And really, what that does for us is it allows us to draw from our strengths as our different organizations. We've worked together in the past, and at some point we thought, this was an opportunity for us as Next Orbit to focus, as Next176 to focus on what we do really well, which is really ecosystem building, and which is really being able to draw on some key expertise and key strengths that we have in Old Mutual. So really, we do feel like we are well positioned, and we have a good sense of what's happening in the certain part of the industries that we're working in. And so this gives us opportunity to focus on that, while then the Byte Orbit team really comes in with their expertise and their years of experience in venture building. And then also the fact that, they already have a really scaled up team with a lot of experience, specifically working with corporates. And so, yeah, we thought that this could definitely quicken some of our work and allow us to get to the meat of what we really want to do a little bit quicker. So that's really how we've got to this. I don't know, Liz, maybe there's something else you might want to add?
No, I think it's a unique collaboration of where where Nanja's team really needs the software development side and the quick reactions that we do and that we do well, and also part of our secret sauce is that we've also always worked with corporates and understand the dynamics and that sort of thing, and understand the processes there. So yeah, I think it's been a great collaboration so far.
And Liz, I mean, I come from a similar company. I had a company that built apps for people, and we built apps for corporates. But what I quickly realized is, building a venture and building an app is like, you need a lot of different people. What was the journey like for Byte Orbit to get to venture building, and maybe share a bit about that? How you went from software developer, which you still do, but how did you go from that into becoming a venture builder?
Yes, of course. I think it took us about 15 years until we decided, let's put some money in our own ventures. But what really happened is that we realized throughout our incredible journey is that we're building IP for everyone else. Let's build IP for ourselves. And we've learned so much in especially in the financial industry, but across the technical spheres that we've worked on. We just thought it's time to start investing in ourselves. So it definitely has been a journey to try and figure out how do you go from purely service industry to building ventures. We've definitely had a few that didn't work, which I'm sure the listeners have heard of, and you fail fast, all of that. We've definitely tried that. And then from a software development side, and kind of what makes us unique as well, is that our founder, Amit Ramdath, he is a software developer by trade when he started in this industry, but he realized very quickly working with corporates that there was something missing. And the piece that was missing is what we were talking about just now, is kind of what we call product design, but where we really help facilitate the teams and help get to solutions that really make sense to the users, rather than just developing and shelving, because that's kept happening. We would develop, we would build, we would be all so excited, and guess what? It gets shelved once again. And since that's been introduced, where we've really focused on the user, on the customer journey, on really making sure that the customer, as our client, is happy, as well as the customer on the other side of the user journey. It's really changed things quite around for us in terms of our focus. And specifically, some of the products that we are working on today with Nonja and team is focused on some of the SME challenges that we've faced as a business ourselves and that we wanted to solve. And it's been great to have a partner to enable that, to help us distribute it at some point. And that's also what's incredible for us.
Yeah, I see now. I'm going to start geeking out, Renia. Sorry. Yeah, because I think that what I'd like to dive into is like if there's a way that you can sort of describe how that philosophy resonates with the clients and the corporates and stuff, because that product design piece doesn't seem to be it's not mature in our industry, in this country anyways. Like it's still philosophies that people need to understand. Wherever I go, where I am now, I'm looking at some of this problem, like, how did we even get this far? Like the product is not well designed, but obviously solved a good problem. So they solved the right problem, got distribution, got it out. But now we're stuck with a very clunky, very messy product. And that's sometimes one of the reasons why they just get shelved, because no one finds them valuable. You weren't able to actually unlock that value. So any aha moments, anything you can share with those people that are probably in a similar space, SME, trying to create a new thing, and you're saying, no, think about the user, think about your design principles.
Really what's made the biggest difference for us is, yes, of course, speaking to users, speaking to your potential users, and either proving yourself right or wrong in the process. Don't wait until you're there. Don't wait until you've spent if you the founder of your business, or if you are a corporate that's using a service like us, don't wait for it to be in market for it to tell you what's actually going on. Go and talk to your potential users. You will find out very quickly what they think and how they'll be using the product. We see this every day, but also don't just rely on that. It's so important to get qualitative and quantitative information. We work with so many partners to try and get proper stats, proper transactional data, etc., to try and validate our product concepts from the start. And that's really, I think, where Nonja and her team, and then my team, we're working so closely together at the moment, is all these ideas that's coming into our space. How do we get it that, we've spent the money and it's actually going to, as you said, instead of just get shelved, but like really make people click, like make people understand, oh, this is actually solving this problem for me. And we realize it's often smaller nuances about how you position it. How you speak to your customers in terms of the problem that you're solving for them. Bring it to them. Our MD always says, like, sell it as you're building. And you're selling it not to your client, not to the paying client yet, but to the end user. So yeah, we carry on experimenting. We've experimented so much in the different ways to get some of that information out. And we often like to say, if you do interviews, they would often say, oh, I don't know, their favorite chocolate is bar one. But if you get to the shop, they're going to end up buying a Kit Kat because it's cheaper. So you can't just rely on that. So it's really important to look at the process holistically and use all of your data points.
So I'm interested in the corporate side, Nonjabulo. Old Mutual is a massive company. I think most people who don't work in corporate have no sense of how big Old Mutual actually is. And it's not only South African, it's continental. It has a massive presence across Africa. And obviously in large organizations, it's just inevitable that you'll end up with silos and people with specific business objectives trying to drive things. And often when you build disruptive technology, you either need a lot of buy-in from these people, or you need buy-in across silos. And good luck when that happens, because that's often where it gets really tricky, because then you have to pull people in a specific direction and you have to get buy-in. But how's Next navigating the interaction with the bigger Old Mutual machine, and how do you see this playing out as you build some of these things where you need buy-in from corporate? Like how does one do that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and it's definitely been what we've spent a good portion of this year really working on and trying to figure out. Definitely agree on the silos and the multiple teams and the multiple entities. I think in some ways we've been somewhat lucky. We still have our work cut out for us. But in some ways we are lucky in the sense that we have a group of people that we've built up over time that we call the Friends of Next, which are really a group of strategic thinkers and people who are also working in their own innovation departments, within
within Old Mutual.
within Old Mutual. So there will be multiple other innovation teams or divisions or people working on interesting new ideas or concepts or ways of working. And so we've really been able to spend the year finding them, getting to understand their pain points, getting to understand their challenges, and also understand where we overlap and how they can draw on us and how we can draw on them. And so really over the year and further, you know, I think Rio, who's been at Old Mutual even longer than Next, has also done some of this early work for us, but really starting to build up that overlap in ideas and in understanding and getting us to a point where we are starting to see some really cool and really interesting pockets of collaboration and working across different divisions. So I think it's also one of those things that grow with time. So this time next year, I also know for a fact the work that we'll be doing across across Old Mutual will be even more nuanced and will be even more interesting and insightful. But yeah, we've done quite a lot of work already with different Old Mutual teams, the teams in Kenya, the digital teams in Kenya, locally as well. You know, so that's been really, really one of the more interesting things. And I think that's why we keep saying that actually what we've noticed is that we have access to some really, really, really interesting experts and insights and understanding of customers and the market. And so we really want to be able to focus on pulling on that as well, while we also have the understanding of building as well and sort of meeting in the middle, which Liz has mentioned we've been doing pretty well over the year as well. So yeah.
And then, I mean, Next has made a few investments. In fact, I think Next has done a great job in the investments they've made. They've backed some really good founders. And I say really good founders because often what makes a venture successful is the founder. Now, in a venture studio setup, you know, you don't necessarily have a specific founder, or you can't always guarantee that the original internal founder would end up being the person running of the business going forward. Like, what is your thinking around that? Like, how do you mitigate the fact that you don't necessarily have a founder that has equity, that is, you know, all in telling the world, you know, if this thing fails, I fail, and having that pressure that's really healthy sometimes in helping to build a business?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, shout out to our founders in our portfolio. They're some of the most amazing people that I've met and really had the pleasure of knowing. And yeah, I think you're right. I think that's one of the, I'd say, challenging parts, I'd say, of a venture studio and a venture building sort of approach is that sweet spot. When is the right time to pull in a founder? Is it super early? Is it after we've done quite a lot of leg work in terms of that market validation and concept and idea validation? I think that's a conversation that we're having consistently. And we go back and forth on it, and we've tried different models and different approaches. And I have the belief that it would depend on the concept and on the business or the venture idea. When is the right time to bring in a founder? And also, what is the right kind of founder to build in, you know, to bring in? So I think we're trying to take it on a idea by idea basis. And, you know, we've got our eyes on, we start very early looking, trying to see who are some interesting people doing interesting work in the space. And, you know, so yeah, I think it's definitely one of the more interesting challenges, but we're looking forward to solving for that.
But I mean, it does work. From what I understand, SME Go was a venture built outside of Old Mutual and is now being run by an internal team.
It is being run by an internal team. They do have a team member running that, Nobisutu.
Yes.
So I'm not quite certain of whether it started outside of Old Mutual. I'd be lying if I said I knew.
I know.
History. Okay, Bobby,
Bobby worked at the Delta, and I think they worked on it.
Okay, there's got the
Yeah,
Delta.
it was incubated at the Delta. The guy, shout out to Rob. He nurtured that thing with all his heart. He was very sad to let it go when Old Mutual asked for it back.
Okay. So you see, there are some success stories in either direction.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think, you know, you also see, like, as people go along, you know, there are people who naturally start to shine as people want to drive ideas, want to drive concepts. So yeah, I think it's
hey, there's a bunch of very innovative, highly driven, creative people working inside of Old Mutual. They might just have not been unleashed on something that's exciting.
100%. And that's why I said we have our eye on people. I didn't say whether they're internal or external. I think it's a bit of both. And yeah, I think, Nick, you know, in the years to come, those are some of the challenges we want to solve for. Those are some of the expertise we want to draw on as well. So yeah, I'd say look out for that as well.
Yeah, Liz, actually, I'm going to maybe touch on a very touchy subject. I don't know, because you're going to have the big green machine behind you. You know, when it comes to venture building, so as Renee said, working at the Delta, you know, we did a lot of the work that you've been mentioning, and it was tough. And one of the biggest problems we had was budget, because building that product is not cheap. I mean, I'm so curious to see what that influence has on you know, cost of building a startup and doing all that research, because it's not easy, and you need to get people that know what they're doing, and they're not cheap to do. So yeah, just trying to understand, like, how do you guys build your teams? How do you manage budget? You know, what's that relationship going to look like? Because Nonjabulo was talking about like finding those ideas and the things that are, you know, but there's a lot of discovery, research, and validating that needs to happen, and, you know, testing, experimenting, all those beautiful things that cost money.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think we've built this framework that is, I believe, going to be part of our secret sauce. But that is based on my experience, my team's experience, as well as the Next176 team's experience, and then what we've seen in the market that works or not. We've obviously allocated budget the best way we can hopefully use it. And believe you me, and if you work for the Delta, you would know that you can get very creative with a very small amount of money. So yeah, we used to, especially when it comes to experimentation, we're very used to like very small budgets and dancing around it. But we've seen incredible results as well. So yeah, it's not an easy thing to navigate, to be honest. But we know what we need in terms of how to make a success out of this thing. So some of these team members and roles and what we do is a non-negotiable, and that was from the start what we discussed with Next176, and we also continue to do that with our new clients of Byte Orbit. You know, there's not always a way to go as lean as, you know, here's my budget, do something with it. We just rather not do it then. We've burnt ourselves bad enough. So yeah, we have an incredible team of product designers and UI designers that supports us at the moment. And then we worked into the budget that we can get some access to the technical team. You know, they're the expensive ones. So we can go knock on their doors, and luckily, you know, it's all about the relationships and that sort of thing, and bringing them along with the journey. And we also believe, and you were talking about the ideas just now, we really conceptualize together. So it's not something that, you know, some of these concepts are just coming out of Old Mutual. Yes, of course, we have to consider some of the problems that they are facing, but we also use our entire team, so not just, you know, our venture building team, to come up with some of these concepts based on all the research that we've done and so forth. So it does feel very collaborative. It does feel, you know, it does feel like we can experiment. And I think the other amazing thing is that we get incredible amount of autonomy in this relationship that we've built. That's what's making a difference as well. It's not just corporate saying, this is what we like, go and do it. And then we present it back. And I mean, you don't have control of what's going to happen next. Now we do have control with Next176. And it's, yeah, that to me has made the biggest difference in terms of how to manage the teams and the budgets.
Sounds amazing. I'm jealous.
Sorry. So Liz,
come join us.
Speaking of ideas, like, I mean, I'd love to understand like what the process is of finding the ideas, and then also I'd love to hear like what are you focusing on? Because I mean, one can quickly go down a rabbit hole. I mean, if you ever tell anyone that you work in app development like I used to at a braai, you're going to be pitched 5 apps by the time, you know, the meet goes on. And so I highly recommend anybody working in any kind of app space to not say what you actually do. But besides the point, like, so ideas, like how do you get ideas, or how do you decide which ones are good ones, and then maybe what sectors are you going to focus on?
Cool. I'll speak to the process, and Nonja can maybe elaborate on where it comes from. But we, we need to become experts in the fields where the problems arise. So that's really, obviously, that's like the 101 of product building is like, where's the problem, that sort of thing. So we do get the areas of focus from the Next176 team, but we've agreed that in our initial commercials and contracting conversations, because we have similar values as two companies. So we've decided on our focus areas based on our values and what we want to achieve as two different companies, and we brought that together. So the concepts and so on needs to come from that. And then in terms of the process, we do what we call, we focus on the vertical exploration, and we really spend a lot of time getting to know, of course, the market, what's happening in that space. And before we will go into ideation and discovery, we spend a lot of time doing research. And this is before we speak to customers or anything like that, just so that when we walk into the room to have some really fun, creative discussions, we have as much context as possible. And we bring in some of the stakeholders or experts within the field, if it's possible, to then ideate with us in workshops, which is usually ongoing over 2 to 3 days, that we really fill with major blue sky ideas. Really, we've come up with the weirdest, most wonderful things. And out of one of our last ideation sessions, there was 30 ideas on the table, and we actually took 9 into our initial round of testing and discovery. So it shows you that in 3 days, if you prepare properly, you can actually come up with some really, really awesome solutions with the right people in the room. So yeah, then we take it through a lot of experimentation, and then before we actually spend the big bucks on it, we need to have enough validation and enough proof that this is a concept that would serve the purpose of the studio, and of course be viable in terms of taking it further. And then what that MVP is, that small version of the product. So yes, we don't have the big budget for now, but go and prove what we're trying to do with the vision of the products that we are embarking on.
So that's awesome. And Nonjabulo, before you speak about the areas you're going to focus on, I actually have a question, Liz, which I think will help a lot of the startup founders. I think one of the biggest challenges that everybody that's building anything in South Africa is like lack of data, right? So you speak about research. In America, if you want to start a business and let's say you're passionate about ice cream, and I'm not making this up, like you can literally find data on like where ice cream stores are in America, and look at what temperatures are, what the income groups are of certain areas, and go, it's going to be a great idea to build a gelato mania place right here.
Yeah,
and
on
it's
corner,
almost like
exactly.
you can almost go to a bank and raise money because your business plan has all the data to prove that this is most likely going to be a success. In South Africa, we have no data. We can't even trust our census data. So how do you go about finding research data? Shout out to all the census people, but the last census was a mess. We all know that, unfortunately. But how do you go about that to find data that can actually show you like, okay, this is a problem, or we can build something here?
So that's why we do like quite a combination of validation processes to be able to make a decision, because as you say, it's not readily available, especially if you look at quantitative data. So we do an array of things. We do interviews, we do surveys. We have at Byte Orbit, we have a data set of people that that's basically joined what we call the test pilots, and they help us with, and it's quite a big database of people that help us with surveys and that sort of thing. We've broken them up into different segments, etc. So that helps a lot. We spend a lot of time, obviously, on research on desktops and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, we don't always have the budget to get the big data companies to give us nice fact, reports. So I know for at least one of the ventures that's been in work for almost 2 years, we spent at least 6 months just on on research and trying to find those specific pieces of information that would get us the investment that we needed. But again, here we go, being part of the Next team, they are also able to access data that we've never ever been able to obviously play with, see, utilize, and that is making the biggest difference for us, of course. So this is really again where this powerhouse thing is happening, because we're bringing us our experience in terms of knowing how to get the information in between, the free resources, and speaking to potential customers. And then of course, they've got some of the data experts that have the big machine behind them, and of course some of the other ventures and so on. So I'm very excited that we get to work with them on that. So that is a big benefit that we've got. But it wasn't easy. I know for the founders out there, it's a difficult one. It's a long time and a lot of searching the internet.
Or I can just do a shameless rant and say, just read our newsletter, because we do the research for you.
Boom.
So, Nonjabulo, focus areas. Areas. What are you going to focus on and why?
Yeah, so focus areas for us, again, I think it was pretty natural for us to find those spaces, because on the Next176 side, we had those ecosystems that are fairly well written up, and we have a really strong thesis around them, and that we're always updating with more research, and that we are also building out in collaboration with our investment team, with our partnerships team. So we've really got a robust thesis around our ecosystem. So that's really where we wanted to start. And then I think it just naturally flows into the financial services industries and sectors. So I think our focus areas are going to remain there: the debt management, responsible debt management, income protection spaces. And then also, of course, we've done quite a lot of investing in the jobs and sort of ecosystem.
Yes.
And so we wanna contribute to that in that way from a build perspective as well. So I think you will see a few ventures in that space as well from us. So yeah, I think we're gonna start there, and then as we go, you know how it is when you start research in one area, it kind of leads you into another. But those are the areas that we'd like to focus in right now.
Awesome.
And what is like a successful one? So like we've mentioned SME Go. I was there in the early days. There was at the time that it wasn't sure it was going to be a success, but when Old Mutual were showing their interest, we knew that there was something, we were getting the traction. So what does that success look like? Once we've spoken, Liz has mentioned the research, the discovery, the surveys, and all of that. What do you think? What does it look like success wise? To say, okay, cool, this venture is looking good. What do you look for?
Yeah. Liz and I were talking about this actually not so long ago. So she will chip in. But I think, because we're building ventures, which are businesses, standalone entities as well at some point, we're obviously, at the end of the day, we're looking for revenue. We're looking for businesses that can stand on their own, that have a real customer base, that have product market fit. So at the top of it all, that's something that's important to us. I think other ways that we can count and that we think about success is from a strategic perspective. Again, we are building from an ecosystem point of view. And so some ventures, maybe they might not blow the lights out or knock the lights out or hit the lights out. Which is it? One of the three in relation to the lights.
Blow.
Is it hit or is it
knock? It's knock the lights.
Knock?
Knock the lights out. Jeez, it's like it's December, okay, guys.
It is. So they might not be the next unicorn, but the access that they give us is something quite strategic that does help from an ecosystem perspective, and that does give sort of Old Mutual again that competitive edge into the next 176 years. So I think we view success, in a quite a holistic way. Liz, I'm not sure what else you might want to add to that.
Yeah, I think we mentioned at the beginning of the chat about that we really want our ventures to make an impact and to make a change in people's lives. And it's really something that we shared from the start when these conversations started. in terms of what we want to do at the end of the day. And of course, for us, and especially from a software perspective, we need the venture to be scalable and to be stable and to be secure. And that is obviously the history that we have, but it's harder doing it in like shorter space of time. That's obviously our goal here, is to get it out quickly and see what the market does. So that's really a success measure for us as well. And yeah, each venture would have its own success measure that we create ourselves in terms of our goals, etc. But yeah, from that perspective, yeah, that's what it looks like.
Nice. I had a question, but now I've forgotten it. These are the things that we edit out of the episode.
Okay.
I can do a follow-up on that. So, I mean, how do you decide whether you spin it out as an individual venture or take it over into Old Mutual? Is there preset criteria, or is it case by case, analyze it as you go along?
Yeah, this is actually a good question, and you reminded me because there was a point I wanted to add in Liz's earlier point around the process that we take. We've also built in a very robust stage gate process, which basically just says that, we can't sort of run with an idea till whichever stage without it going through a very clearly stated and robust process of review. And those stage gates are really comprised of, it's a steering committee, essentially comprised of a Next176 team and the Byte Orbit team. And every now and then we do pull in experts from outside. So it could be someone from Old Mutual, could be someone from just anywhere in the industry. And that really is an important part of our process, because it allows us to ensure quite early on that we have a lot of conviction around this idea. We're very clear early on whether we think it is going to be successful or not, and in which ways, and that we are comfortable to take that as a risk if it's a risk, or the upside if it's an upside. So I think that's a very big part of our process. It takes a lot of work to prepare for those. Lots of research, lots that goes into it, lots of back and forth. But we're really proud of the process, and we're really proud of that approach. So that's the first thing that I wanted to raise there. And then, Renia, can you remind me of a question, because that was going to lead to
like how do you decide whether or not you exit it or make it a standalone business or pull it over into Old Mutual?
Okay, great. So yes, and one of our later stage gates, there is a question around. So by the time we are making that decision, we obviously need it to be revenue generating, and then there's a question of like how revenue generating it is, how much runway we think it would have, or traction we think it has. So it's almost a conversation that in some ways starts fairly early. I think by the time we're starting a venture build, we're already thinking about the exit. And so, it's nuanced in that way, but we do have a set of criteria that we've outlined, some of them being what is our revenue metrics on the business right now, and how far are we, what does traction look like, how comfortable are we with the product market fit, and yeah, a few other entities. And then I think from the beginning, we try to have a sense of whether we're building for an exit back into Old Mutual or out into the open market. It's not always easy, and to get that right and to know that right from the beginning. But it does help, we think, to have that in mind pretty early on, because it does kind of influence, how you build, how you go about the validation, who you bring in, etc. So we try to know that fairly early on, even though it's not always easy. But yeah.
Yeah, because that's kind of where my question is. It's like, for a founder or an aspiring founder, someone that's sitting on an idea or sitting on a bit of traction of an idea, what do you want to tell them to say, hey, get hold of us so that we can help you or assess for you, whatever it is? What does that look like? What does that founder need to hear from you right now?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it's tough in a few ways. One, I think the work of a founder is really, really tough. You're doing all of what we are doing, and a lot of the time you're doing it with a much smaller team, or or you're really bootstrapping, and that's a super commendable thing that I think founders are really doing. And so Liz and I were just chatting about this right now, that how transferable is the experience and the and expertise or that you can take from venture studio build versus just going out the traditional way. And I think there is some learnings there. I mean, Liz spoke a lot about research and the importance of research, and the importance of trying your best to validate yourself and unvalidate yourself, so remove some of the natural biases there. So yeah, I mean, I think whenever we speak to founders, which we do a lot because we've got the investment side of the business, that's exactly what we're looking at. Our investment team is really, really, really strong on that thesis. They care a lot about what you think is going to happen in your market, in your industry. What is your perspective, and why? What drives your bet in this direction? I think they care a lot about that. We have some really, really shout out Lungelo and Rajiv, but they are like sticklers with the research on what's happening in your industry and your market. So that's a big one that we look out for. And then we also look out for, have you gone out into the market and tried? A lot of the time it's very easy to get stuck in the ideation and the ruminations phase, and you do a lot of thinking and a testing and you're back and forth, but at some point you kind of have to go and just be in the market, whatever it is that you can be in the market with. And we try to do the same in the studio. I think we have the potential to also overthink because we're a very research heavy team. So I think we also want to work with people who are action, biased towards action, basically. So we look at that as well. And we'd ask founders to also think about that as well. I'm trying to think what else would really matter. I don't know, Liz, if you also have any
the answers to the tough questions.
Yeah,
I remember meeting with Lungelo and Rajiv for the first time, and it's the investors, they have interesting questions that you maybe
Very
didn't think
specific
about.
question.
Yeah, that you maybe didn't think about, or so that's why it helps to get a sounding board, to get people, to get mentors within your industry or within the space that you're trying to play. Yeah, they've definitely taught us quite a lot in the short time that we've worked together, and just the way that they think, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and for those that aren't, looking for some mentorship, there is the open letter community right here. There's the collaboration. People come in and learn more from other founders, right?
Working together, yeah.
There we go. Cool. And
Listen,
on that note,
Bobby, just edit. Yeah, I need to drop off, but you can finish off with
the lightning round. Yeah. I might edit
Liz,
that. I might
Nonjabulo,
not.
I'm so sorry that I have to
go
go.
ahead, son.
But I have to go host something. So if I was just the attendee, I would have skipped it. But
good luck.
All right, thanks.
You.
Lovely meeting you, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks,
Bobby.
hey.
Cool. So just to finish off, we'll do a lightning round, guys. So lightning round is a few questions. You just first thing that comes to your mind, and then answer it.
Sounds dangerous.
Yeah, it's very dangerous. Very dangerous.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, cool. So I'll do a bit of ping pong. So one to the other. So the one question and then the next question for the next person. So Liz, let's start with you. A book that you would recommend product people to read.
Measure What Matters.
Ooh, nice. John Doerr. OKRs. It's actually interesting how few people are using OKRs. Is that a philosophy you guys are using, just out of interest?
Yeah, and I think it definitely helped me understand measuring the products and measuring the teams in terms of the outputs better. It wasn't necessarily that we don't follow OKRs perfectly, but it definitely gave me a better.
I haven't seen anyone, to be honest.
No, I think that's the thing. I don't think that's a thing, but we definitely tried at one point. We failed horribly. I mean, it's too much, but it taught me so much about what to look out for, what is important, what is actually important to talk about in terms of your success measures and what you're trying to reach on the other side. It taught me a lot about product in that way.
Okay, nice. Nonjabulo, do you have one? Do you have a book?
I was actually thinking about that, and I'm horrible at thinking under pressure. But I really, really do love. Can I talk about this on your podcast? But I really do love Lenny's newsletter.
Oh, I love Lenny's newsletter.
How do you not love
Oh,
Lenny? I'm sorry, Lenny.
I love
We're trying to be the
Lenny.
Lenny of South Africa, okay?
Okay, perfect. So then it's not competitive. It's somewhere.
No,
It's somewhere in the middle.
Complimentary.
that's
Compliment.
exactly.
Yeah, I
Love Lenny.
sometimes when I'm a bit stuck on, so what I really love about them is they share industry insights on like benchmarks and like what is
Mm.
happening in companies. And a lot of the time that's the kind of information that I'm looking for, that I'm struggling to find locally, etc. So I really like that. And actually, I do think that that's something you guys should probably also add in there into your work, because it is really hard to find local benchmarks. And so I use them a lot when I'm looking for things like that.
Yeah, this is why we do the podcast, why we do the newsletter, and why we're excited about the next orbits, because we need this ecosystem. Like, we desperately need it, and like, we need more people in the ecosystem doing the things, learning the things, trying to do OKRs, learning why they don't work, how to, we just need more of all the stuffs. So my next question then is your favorite app that was built in South Africa. Non, you go first. The South African app or websites that you love using.
Oh gosh. Okay, so this, I don't know if it's that I love building, but that I'm using. I don't know if I want to put that out there, but I'm really, really fascinated by Boardroom. I'm really fascinated by their roadmap and their approach right now. So Boardroom is a dating app they use LinkedIn to verify their users. And I just think that they're in a very fascinating space, very interesting space. So I'm really following along in their journey of building something that is local, that is really loved, it seems, and that is solving for a very specific problem. So yeah, I'm just following along their journey. I'll give it another thought, but they came to mind immediately when you asked the question.
Great. Liz? You can't say something you've designed.
No, I'm not, because I knew you would say that. But honestly, it's kind of like a phase of life thing at the moment. But I'm a mom, and life is hectic, and there's no more hours in the day. So I'm sorry, I'm with most of South Africa in 60/60 right now. It's not necessarily always the best design. Well, don't want to say that, but like, I could probably make it better, just, because I do what I do.
Challenge accepted. ShopRite,
exactly,
if you're watching.
Hey, if you're watching. But no, it's made my life so much easier. I love it to bits. It doesn't compare to any of the other online shopping convenience apps. I don't love all the changes they've made recently in the introduction of Hyper. But I have given them that. I have given them my feedback. I was on the beta, because I use it at least like 4 times a week, 5 times a week, sometimes.
Well, as long as you're buying a fair amount, then I think it's okay.
No, I am. I know. I hear you. It's it's fueling the family. It's, we are entertainers, and literally we were in a workshop the other day in Joburg, and we forgot our sticky notes.
Oh, no way.
And guess what we did? We ordered 60/60 at 8 o'clock in the morning to the Old Mutual building, and they delivered it for me. It was amazing.
So I think that's a really success story, that they were.
It is, and it's, you can hear the pain points when I'm talking about it. So I think that shows you. I mean, we were talking about wanting to bring the most perfect product into the market. If you can solve the pain points and you can hit that note that I was just talking about, that gets people excited and that really simplifies their lives, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't. Yeah. It should be.
Fall in love with the problem, not the solution.
Exactly.
All right, ladies. Well, we've lost Rainier, but very great to have you guys. I'm super excited to see what this collaboration, this joint venture brings South Africa, and the much needed love and support in the ecosystem we just mentioned. So thank you for joining. We'll be watching closely, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Thanks so much. This was great.